Hi learners, our lesson is on revision of oral literature. In this first lesson, we are going to define the term oral literature. Oral literature is spoken, it is acted and performed art whose transmission or presentation or media is by word of mouth. That is our definition of oral literature. Our second area will be identify three main genres. You may also be asked identify three main categories, or identify three main forms, or identify three main types, kinds or classes of oral literature. We have oral narratives. Number 2, we have short forms, and 3, we have oral songs or oral poems. Our next area, state 8 types or 8 subgenres or 8 subcategories or 8 subclasses of oral narratives. We have one, what we call the legends. We have myths, we have dilemma narratives, etiological, also called explanatory or why narratives. We also have trickster narratives, what we call tale stories. We have Orca, also referred to as monster narratives, fables, and then parables. In our next area, we will state all short forms in oral literature. We have proverbs as a short form. Riddles are also referred to as short forms in oral literature. Tongue twisters are also short forms used in oral literature. We have puns, jokes, and idioms used as short forms in oral literature. In this area, we will state at least 5 key characteristics of the 8 subgenres or the 8 subcategories of oral narrative. Remember, we have listed them. We will begin with the legends. The legends are historical. They are usually based on community heroes or heroine. Heroes or heroine have supernatural powers or supernatural abilities. Legends are true in nature. Heroes or heroine in legends usually sacrifice a lot on behalf of the community, and always legends have a moral lesson. We look at our second type of narrative, which is the myths. The myths are usually sacred or religious. They tell us about origin of a community or certain beliefs and customs of a community. There is reference to superhuman being, or they involve superhuman beings, and they are usually based on history of a community. Our third type of narrative, we will look at the dilemma tales or dilemma narratives. In these narratives, protagonist has to make a tough choice. None of the choice is easy to make, and the protagonist usually regrets the choice made, and they always end with a question, and they usually have a moral lesson. Our fourth narrative, etiological or explanatory narratives. They usually explain the origin of natural phenomena or natural occurrences. For instance, they may explain the origin of death as a natural occurrence. They explain why things are the way they are. For instance, they may explain why the zebra has lines on its body. They deal with the question why. They heavily rely on the cultural background of the community, and always they have a moral lesson. We also look at the trickster narrative, usually referred to as tales or stories, and they involve trickery, deceit, cunning, or trickster tricks, where a character is tricked by another, what we call the dupe. The character who is tricked in a trickster narrative is usually referred to as the dupe. They involve small versus big animals. For instance, they may involve a small animal like the hare, small, or the rat, and big animals like the elephant or the lion. In these narratives, small animals are usually intelligent and cunning. Take for instance, if we take a rabbit, it is usually intelligent and it is cunning. Big animals like the elephant are usually mighty, but they are gullible and foolish. They are used to test brain intelligence versus brawn, which is strength or power. Small animals always trick big animals, and they usually have moral lesson. We look at our next narrative, which is the Orca or monster narrative, and this narrative involves interaction between ogres or monsters and human beings. They involve creatures from human imagination and fantasy, which is unreality. Creatures have the ability to turn themselves into human forms, and creatures usually take advantage of the vulnerable or weak in the society. Monsters or ogres are persuaded or handed by heroes or heroines, and they always teach us a moral lesson. We again look at our next narrative, the Fables, and they usually involve animal characters. The animal characters give human qualities and attributes or traits of human. That is, animals are personified. They are usually derived from particular backgrounds. They politely teach social norms or standards and rules of a particular community, and they usually teach or give a moral lesson. The parables are our next class of narratives. They have a religious allusion or reference of the Bible or religion. They are used to teach a moral lesson and are a form of Christian or religious education, and they mostly use human characters. Thank you for your attention. Join me in the next lesson.